Hey there everyone, this is Samuel Johnson and welcome back to the Alien Force Retrospectives. And today we're going to be looking at episode 34 of Ben 10 Alien Force, If All Else Fails. And in this episode, Ben, Gwen, Kevin, and Max are going out camping. Max has been telling stories of all his days as a plumber, just some adventures here and there. It's just kind of nice and charming, and admittedly it's a little cute too. It's not cute because it invokes memory. It actually does feel like evokes from the classic series. Just seeing the original trio and Kevin all just kind of trying to go out and have fun together. However, during the camping trip, an earthquake hits, causing an earthquake hits. It's not a big earthquake. It's just kind of a minor tremble, and it just causes a few things to shake, but otherwise nothing, no big damage. However, under the earth, deep underground, earthquake does actually do something, as beneath the ground we see what looks like these large pods, and inside one is a Highbreed. Not like all the others where he's a different color because of what happened at the end of War of the Worlds. He's in fact still he still looks the way he is, and it turns out that this Highbreed is not aware of what had happened. Apparently, he'd been put on hibernation during the war, and essentially was meant to act as a fail-safe, so to speak. That if the Highbreed lost the war, then he'd be woken up and enact what is essentially their way of their final plan. Pretty much of the possibility if they failed. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm gonna reach over here because he's right. Because you know who, the one who took over my videos a few weeks ago, is over there doing something cute. So anyway, enough about him. So anyway, once he wakes up, he goes over to control console that's nearby and begins messing with it. And when he does, however, Max, who's grilling everyone these squid burgers, which I think is the closest approximation I can call them because they are made of tentacles, he suddenly gets drowsy and knocks over the grill and the remaining burgers, and he begins talking about access codes or something. He seems completely out of it. However, when the kids question him, he's like, "Oh, I'm fine, really." But things are just, he's still acting weird. Knocks over the grill again when they decide to actually make real burgers. And Max says, "Look, tell you what, how about we just get some shut eye, and if I'm still like this in the morning, we can take me to a hospital." Which, if you ask me, if someone who's seen all of the classic series and up to this, that is a dumb decision. Because usually when they say we should get some shut-eye when something weird is going on, odds are by the next morning they will not have the chance to try and fix it. And he's moaning over there. I'm not letting him take over these videos. If he tries taking over these videos, I'm pausing this thing and pushing him out. Anyway, so of course everyone sleeps outside, but when they're sleeping, Max gets up, and it turns out that something is grown on him, some kind of weird root or whatever. It's grown from his neck. It's grown from his back. It's grown from his neck and back and covered a little bit of his face. And he seems to be talking about how. And once he wakes up, he takes the rust bucket and leaves. And thus, when Ben, Gwen, and Kevin wake up, they find that the rust bucket is gone. And so with Gwen's tracking ability, they manage to track. Manage to track where Max is gone. It turns out that he goes to this one little wooded area where there are 4 other people. They call themselves I think seeds or seedlings. Either way, I think it's a seed. But either way, they said that 5 out of 97 seeds are present, and that's enough. And so the Highbreed underground hits a switch on the console, and it causes this weird dome to encompass them that looks like orange jello. So the trio, Ben, Gwen, and Kevin managed to catch up and find Max and the people. But just before they can cut Max out, the Highbreed comes up and is holding him up with a laser. They're of course confused and wondering what's going on. Why are you here? And he says that he's there to ensure that the Highbreed win. That for the war they won. And of course they're confused because dude, haven't you heard the war is over? It's over, and the Highbreed is still. And of course, while the Highbreed believes that, he still considers them enemies and begins shooting at them. So Ben, Gwen, and Kevin try fighting the Highbreed off one by one, eventually trying to gang up on him. But by the time however, they don't manage, but unfortunately because of the fight they were too distracted, and so the ground starts shaking again. Only this time it's not an earthquake, as from the orange mold or whatever something grows out of the ground, and it's essentially, I think the closest approximation I can call it is a giant Highbreed made of plants and roots. Once it sprouts, it walks away, and so they're wondering what the heck. And so after that, at that point, the Highbreed stops fighting the trio, as it says there, as he says that is the instrument of humanity's destruction, essentially. And of course, the trio are like, "What's going on? How is that thing How is that thing?" But the Highbreed doesn't give any answers, as instead he just flies off to follow it and ensure that what it's doing. As such, the group tries following after this thing, but no matter what they do to try and get its attention, it either does nothing, or if it does get their attention, it's only so that it can bat them away. Whatever they do, they can't seem to hurt this thing, and they're starting to wonder how they can stop it, especially when the military gets involved, because military starts getting involved. I have absolutely no idea how they came across it. Maybe they saw it with their satellites, realized and because it was going towards a nuclear plant. And so of course they don't want to get access to that much radiation, as if they do, it'll cause fallout. But either way, Ben realizes they had to find. Ben starts, if they don't know how to beat it, Ben thinks, well, maybe there's someone that does. So he goes jet ray and flies off, while Gwen and Kevin have to distract it with the military. And while they manage to get the Highbreed from before to at least to come down, he's still not very helpful. He's still threatening. He says he doesn't have to answer to any of them. But it turns out, but then shortly after, ship comes down, and we see who Ben went to get. It's Riney. I like that Ben at this point actually ends up calling him by his full title. It's really nice show of respect. And he said, and of course the Highbreed's like, "Who the heck are you?" And Riney says, "I'm the Highbreed Supreme." And of course, because this is a Highbreed from before, or he with the same mindset and so forth, he said, What the heck are you talking about? You're not supreme. Look at your hand. You're unclean." But it turns out that when he says, "Yeah, look at it," it turns out that the Highbreed Supreme are given a special mark that signifies their leadership. And so when the Highbreed sees that, despite what I kind of like though is that despite the fact that that Riney is what they call impure by the standards of their original standards, he looks at the instant he sees that sign, he acts humble. It's like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, sir." And so this is where we finally learn what the purpose of this thing was and why it is. Like they said, it is a failsafe. What it amounted to is that the Highbreed, in the attempt that if they ever lost, they sealed a Highbreed on, I think they don't say this actually, but I'm assuming, on the planets that they invaded. I think invaded, in this case Earth. If they ever in the small chance that they lost the war, then these people will be woken up, and thus they institute this failsafe. And how the failsafe works is that when the Highbreed captured certain humans for as prisoners or as DNA aliens, they implanted a seed in them. Not a seed which really did nothing to their physiology. It kept them safe, but for the sole purpose of being the failsafe. And in this case, I think when Max got the seed implanted was all the way back in Max Out, when he got captured by the Highbreed when he went to try and save Ken, which I think makes sense, as you did see him at one point as you did see a Highbreed approach him with a Xenocyte, so it does kind of make sense that they would do something to him. But at the same time, otherwise it did nothing, and only just was dormant and ready to be activated. And so once the failsafe was active, the nearest seeds would coalesce near the extraction point, and so since Max was there, it would activate the system and activate this giant monstrosity. And what it would do is that it would go towards essentially what would be a large source of power, in this case the nuclear plant, and absorb all the excess energy from it, and it would become essentially the most powerful of nuclear bombs. It would explode, and the resulting fallout would make the entire planet uninhabitable. Which, in my opinion, is actually I think is nice. Something they do in fiction, and that they've even done in the classic series at one point. I'm looking at, and I'm mostly referring to side effects. Excuse me. Is that for some reason they can't distinguish nuclear power they can't distinguish nuclear They can't distinguish a nuclear reactor from a nuclear bomb, and that they think that, oh, they're both explosive. All I have to do is hit it the wrong way, and they go into overload, and boom. But then, I guess you could say they kind of sort of imply that with this one, but no, they don't. But no, they don't. They say that what would explode is the giant giant monster. That's what would explode. It would absorb the excess energy and then go boom. So I'm okay with something like that. I think it makes sense. So of course, when they learn this, they say, "Well, can't you just turn it off or something?" Only it turns out it can't be turned off, which which even they acknowledge makes sense in the episode. It's supposed to be a failsafe. What's the point of having a failsafe if you can turn it off? As such, this thing is pretty much unstoppable. None of their attacks can phase it. Nothing can hurt it, and it's headed straight for a nuclear reactor, and pretty much it looks like they're pretty much boned. They don't know what to do, and so the group realizes they want to stop this thing, they need to go inside it. If they can't hurt it from the outside, maybe they can find a way to disconnect it from the inside, hurt it or whatever, and they manage to. And so they realize that, well, if it's supposed to be a plan and it's like a giant it looks like a giant hybrid. Essentially, it should have something that exudes gas. And yes, it does mean they're climbing up its ass. I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it. They show it. They don't show them going up, but they do see. But they show what happens when they're in. They show them going. They show what happens when they're inside it. You see a hole. You see walking. You know it's up the thing's ass. That is all. That's pretty much all I can say on the matter, because even they're disgusted by this. But either way, just regardless of how disgusting it is, they manage to get inside, and they manage to get inside. They fight off some antibodies, which are essentially all the people that were made to do this, and they manage to free them and work their way up to the brain of this thing. It turns out that Max is the brain. Unfortunately, though, they can't disconnect him from it, as for the antibodies, all they had to do to free the people was disconnect them from the greater whole, and they became normal again. But unfortunately, Max is too interconnected with this thing, so every time they try and cut a synapse or whatever, they just reform. So they realize they don't know what to do, and but then Ben has an idea. So as he goes Swamp Fire, and while Swamp Fire is not powerful enough to control this entire structure, he is strong enough to disconnect Max from the greater whole, from the brain, as the thing is a giant plant. However, while this does stop the giant monster from absorbing all the energy from the power plant, unfortunately now, because it has no brain, it's coming apart. It's coming apart. It's falling over. Everything in it is going to be destroyed. They don't know what to do. However, at the last minute, it turns out the Highbreed from before, realizing he screwed up and that realizing that his mission has changed and that things are different, and the fact that the Highbreed even gave the order to turn this thing off and keep him hurting people. He's come inside to finish his duty as he goes over to where Max was, attaches himself to this thing and manages to control it not enough to get it back up because it's falling apart, but just enough so that he can stand it back, so that he can move it over and keep it from falling over onto the power plant. And thus, the group manages to get out. I think they got the people out. We don't see them, so they might easily be dead. I don't know. But either way, the world is saved. The world is saved. Max is normal, and Riney says that once he get back to the Highbreed homeworld, he'll most likely look through the records to ensure that there are no more doomsday weapons. So, on the whole, I really liked this episode. What I liked about it too is that this one actually is kind of a nice throwback to the first two seasons, and while still kind of being its own thing. I like that we get to see more of the Highbreed as a threat, and I like that we get that we see more of Riney. He was a nice character, and I like that he's a nice character, and I like that he's still. And I kind of like seeing how the hierarchy within the Highbreed works when we see the Highbreed from before, who is under the same old mindset of superiority. We're better as we are. If your genetics are just slightly different, then you're impure. And while he thinks that of Riney at first, the instant he sees the symbol on his hand, regardless of his personal thoughts, he realizes, oh crap, you're my boss. I am so sorry. I like that. It's kind of nice, and I do like that. I also kind of like seeing a little bit more of how the culture for the Highbreed work. In this case, when he dies performing his duty. He is even Rhiney says, to die a soldier, to die in battle, doing what you're ordered. There's no greater honor for a Highbreed, and so to die doing his duty, what he was doing his duty is good enough for him, despite the fact I like that. I kind of liked seeing that. I liked seeing more of Rhiney. And I kind of liked seeing this contingency plan. I liked seeing that that the Highbreed are still kind of up to something. Like, now we know that they're good guys now. We see that they've changed, but I like the fact that the Highbreed from the first two seasons did think this far ahead and actually did and while they were superior enough to think, oh, we'll win this, at the same time they realized, but what if we don't? And so I like seeing just a little bit left over from that mindset, and so we kind of see this giant monster, and by the same token, I like the design for the monster. It really is just a giant mass of plants and weeds that does resemble a Highbreed, and they do show that it is very strong. As Ben, Gwen, and Kevin try and fend it off, Ben could have easily gone way big. At one point he tried to, but instead got Humongosaur. Though I don't know why he doesn't switch into way big, even though he probably could. But I guess he wanted to conserve power, because even this episode shows that the timeout sequence is still present, even though he was Diamond Head when he encountered Max and then changed to Swamp Fire. I don't know. I don't know. That's a little but that's a nitpicking right there. I kind of like that. I like the design. I like seeing this. It's really just it's just a fun episode. I like seeing more of the connection with seasons 1 and 2. I like seeing the original trio back together again. I like seeing Ben, Gwen, and Max kind of doing their own thing. I like seeing them camping and bringing Kevin along. It's nice. Nice little thing showing they're still family and all that. I like that. It's nice. It's just nice. That's really all I can say about this episode. I think it's just nice. There's nothing really grand about it. It's just nice. There is some grand stuff. But it is nice. I like seeing. I really don't know what to say. I'm on repeat right now. All I can really think is that I liked seeing the Highbreed. I liked seeing this monster. I liked seeing them trying to fend it off. I liked seeing Max as part of the action again, even though he's kind of pulled out for the story, which I guess makes sense as he hasn't really had the status of main character for quite a while. Sorry, I just thought something was different from the video. I don't know why. But anyway, I like seeing a little bit more of how the Highbreed culture works, and I do kind of like that they do take note of certain things, like how the nuclear plant will go boom, and that it's the mechanism that's going to do it. I like seeing that. Yeah, on the whole, it's just a nice episode. Nothing grand. Well, actually, pretty grand. For what it is. It's actually pretty grand. But on the whole, it's just some nice little leftovers from season 2. Everything's nice. We get some nice character interactions by seeing everyone together. And we actually get a mention of Kevin's father at one point, as apparently one of the complaints Kevin has by going on all these constant camping trips with Max is that apparently he just tells all the same plumber stories over and over to the point where they know him before. And Kevin just wants to hear stories about his dad. And apparently, once the trio manages to save Max from the Highbreed mechanism, he is mumbling something about Devin Levin providing cover fire while he disarmed a bomb. So I kind of like that, and it's another hint at stuff to come later on. And at the same time, a complaint that I will bring up, that I mentioned all the way back in the Dark Star Rising episode. And don't worry, and I will talk about that. I will, because I have my problem with it. And it's just a bit, but that's for later. For now, nice episode. I like seeing a follow-up for all that. I like seeing the group together. I like seeing Rhiney and more of the Highbreed culture. Yeah, on the whole, good episode, so. Thanks for watching, and tune in next week as we begin looking at two more. As we start looking at as for the next two episodes, we'll be reintroduced to villains from the classic series with mixed results, admittedly. So, yeah, I'm Samuel Johnson. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week. Take care.